Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. It's Louisa Nicola. I'm a neurophysiologist and human performance coach. Today, I am interviewing Courtney Swan. Courtney is an integrative nutritionist. She is a real food activist on a mission to change America's broken food system. Team, today, you are going to be learning everything that you need to know about what to put in your body and what not to put in your body. You mentioned that you don't think a plant-based diet or a vegetarian diet is the best thing for a human in terms of nutritional content. Can we unpack that? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So if you look at the nutritional breakdown of meat, so especially red meat in particular, it is so full of vitamins and minerals. It has almost every single essential vitamin and mineral and amino acid that we need. When you talk about, a lot of people will compare proteins in, like, let's say, good example is like quinoa versus like ground beef. First and foremost, quinoa, well, they say that quinoa has all the essential amino acids, but depending on your genetic makeup, all those amino acids may not be bioavailable for your specific body. Whereas something like beef has all of the essential amino acids, has the entire wide array of protein spectrum. And then on top of that, it has all the essential minerals and nutrients you need. It's really rich in zinc, selenium, B12. It has a lot of these vitamins and minerals that you can't find as bioavailable in plant-based foods, not to mention if you were to get the same amount of protein, I can't remember the exact gram to gram, so we'd have to look it up, but you'd have to eat something like 2 to 3 cups of quinoa, which is equal to, I believe it was around like 600 calories versus a steak, which is like 150 or something. And look, like, I don't count calories. I'm not like super into like diet and calories and all that. However, you do have to look at eating in one day. And if you are overeating carbohydrates like that, you are going to see less muscle mass and you're going to gain more weight ultimately. So it's all about getting more nutrition bang for your buck.
Well, I think what I see is that a lot of the time the animal or the plant-based community is more so focusing, and this is my world, I'm in the Alzheimer's disease and neurology world. So what I see is a lot of people trying to protect themselves against coronary artery disease or cardiovascular disease and bringing down their LDL and ApoB. And therefore it's this fight against, well, meat contains so much saturated fat that it's going to end up leading to a higher LDL-C, a higher ApoB, a higher risk of developing cardiovascular disease. So where do you draw the line there and basically say, but you can still eat meat and not raise your LDL above the limits?
So contrary to popular belief, actually what really affects our LDL and the ApoB and all of that is sugar. Sugar is really the number one driver of all of this. There's a very famous study that came out in the 1970s. It was done with Harvard scientists. And what they found was there was a link between overeating sugar and cardiovascular disease. However, the sugar industry got wind of this and they actually paid these scientists off the equivalent of I think it was like $50,000 or something. It wasn't even that crazy to say in the study that it was actually fat and not sugar. So, and this is very well documented.
Wait, what's the study called? Because that is absolutely insane. However, it is not obscene because I see this in academic research constantly. We see a lot of the large pharmaceutical companies funding studies just to get ahead on certain products per se. But that's why it's really important to understand how to look at the funding of a study and where it was and if it was a randomized control trial. So I'm really interested in understanding which study that was.
So I'm pulling it up right now. And it's actually, and this is very well known now, NPR reported about this. So it's not, it sounds conspiratorial, but it is actually, but yeah, essentially. So that's the problem with nutrition studies is that there's so much outside funding happening that you really do have to be careful. Now you can read into studies and see at the very bottom, and it will tell you if there's a conflict of interest and funding that's happening. But that's the problem. And, this is also what's happening in that you just talked about plant-based versus eating meat. There's a war between that right now. And there's a lot of funding. There was just that study that came out, the twin study with, it was on that documentary Health, or no, not What Health. What was it called? The more recent one, You Are What You Eat. And it was funded by Beyond Meat. That study was funded by a very well-known plant-based burger company. So you just have to be really careful. And I know it can be so incredibly confusing because what I know a lot of people struggle with, and I do too, right? Because I have a science background. I love science. I'm such a nerd for it. We want to have quantitative evidence, right? To back up what our claims are. But it's hard because there's all this conflicting data. You can actually find something to support whatever you want to say. Like I can support the data with a plant-based diet. I can also support it for eating meat. What I really like to tell people at the end of the day, we need to really encourage people to get back in tune with their own bodies and their own intuition. And I know that this sounds a little bit woo-woo, but you have to remember we're primal beings and we're programmed to know what to eat. It's how we've been here for so long on this earth. And so I really like to encourage people that at the end of the day, you need to figure out what really feels good for you and what feels best for you. And also get blood work. Get blood work like twice a year. If you're more meat, and you're seeing your LDL and all your numbers go up, then bring it back down a little bit. That's where you can monitor it with your blood work and how you actually feel. And the more just real whole foods that you eat, look at the foods that have stood the test of time. That's what I always tell people. What have we been eating forever as humans? Real foods, vegetables, fruit, meat, eggs, butter, and then just see how you feel on it.
Yeah, I think it's also, from my standpoint, I think it's wildly ridiculous to think that you can save the earth just by eating Beyond Meat or these fake meat, fake eggs, fake cheese. I think that is just completely ridiculous.
It's also completely false. So all of these fake meats, the main ingredients are coming from what are called monocrops. Monocrops are, if you've ever driven through farmland and you just see rows and rows and rows of the exact same food, we see it typically with soybeans, with corn. Well, what are the main ingredients in a lot of these plant-based burgers? Soy, they use canola oil. So all these industrialized ingredients, and a lot of them come from monocrop culture. Monocropping is spraying the soil with all these pesticides and herbicides that are completely destroying the soil, the ecosystem. And why does this matter? So the ecosystem of the soil, when it's really healthy, it does this mechanism called carbon sequestration. Carbon is actually food for the soil. And when it's healthy and it's able to draw carbon from the atmosphere, it actually brings it out of the atmosphere back into the soil, and it's food for the soil. Now, what happens there? Two things. One, it's pulling the carbon back into the soil so that we can get less of it out of the atmosphere, which is one of the big drivers of climate change right now. And then it's also feeding that soil. When your soil is really healthy, you're actually going to have healthier plants. And so that's going to be a healthier food for us as well, because it's going to be more rich in vitamins, minerals, nutrients. So if we are putting all of our money into these monocrops, we're actually destroying our planet, and it's not doing anything better. And then on top of that, where do you think these plant burgers are being made? They're being made in industrial factories that are pumping out tons of carbon into the atmosphere. So it's a complete fallacy that plant-based is actually better for us.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, especially for the environment. I've actually just gotten into Maui venison. We don't really eat venison in Australia. I live in New York now, and Maui Nui, I believe it is. And I started researching more about regenerative farming and how they actually, produce, their actual meat. And so when you think about it, right? So you were talking about the way that the harmful ways that some of these, cows are slaughtered. Right. And we know that if they're slaughtered in a slaughterhouse, or I'm not sure what they're called, raises the cortisol levels. I can only imagine what else is that it's doing to the actual cow. And then we're ingesting that. Also the way it's been raised, hormones, etc. But then you see, you look up the venison, right? And they talk about how they go out with these silent guns. And they do it at night where they have no idea what it is. And I know it sounds bad when I say it out loud. However, if you are going to be eating meat, you want to know that it's done in a humanely way, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and so I was going to say too, so you brought up regenerative farming, which is that process that I just talked about. Animals are absolutely imperative to this overall ecosystem. have gotten to a point in our farming where we're essentially trying to play God. Like we're messing with nature. And if you actually zoom out and look at the way that nature works when humans don't intervene whatsoever, it all has its place, and animals play an important role in it. And when you apply animals to the land, they help to fertilize the land. It creates this really rich mineral soil that's also, again, it's good for the plants, it's healthier for us. And so they all play a role in all of this. And yeah, so if we're not allowing, if we're like trying to bring animals, because I know like, where was it? I think it was in Ireland, where they're like shooting all their cows right now because they're trying to get rid of the cows because they think that they're actually like creating climate change right now, which is just absolutely insane to me. We actually need them because, like I said, they're a part of this whole process that actually keeps planet Earth in line.
I know and look, this is just one part of a larger issue when it comes to academic research, putting out information out there.